Why is GTII so different from every other meme stock or highly shorted company? Well, the simple answer is there is one player or one short seller in the game. Okay, there is one toxic lender. They are the Kramer brothers and their accomplice Charlie Mayo, plus they got their neighbor working next door. So we're going to identify that as one naked short seller or one toxic lender. Now, these people are your average thugs, low life people that steal from your hard working class every day. It doesn't matter who you are, they are trying to bankrupt these penny stock companies that are challenged financially, that reach out and they need that loan to depend on financially to continue operations, and they destroy companies and they profit off it. They make a couple $100,000, couple $1 million, and then, they go out to dinner and they run away for the next few months. Okay, start up the next operation and boom, they're ready to go. So Wall Street does not care about these guys at all. Okay, they get squashed like bugs. They'll be walked right over and their names will be forgotten. When it comes to a play like AMC and GameStop, it's a whole nother ball game. And the reason why is the play simply got too big. Okay, it's talked about in the media. Millions and millions of people own it globally. And the big point is that the players in the game, we're talking about the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the State Street, okay, Susquehanna, big name people. And who are those players? Well, we saw what happened with Melvin Capital, right? Gabe Plotkin blew his fund up. But who was backing that? That's the big thing. Steve Cohen, point 72, big billionaire and the Mets owner. Ken Griffin, the biggest market maker. Everyone knows this guy's name. But he does control, majority of the order flow that happens in our equity markets. So, he is without a doubt very wealthy, very powerful. And the SEC, they are protecting those people, okay? The SEC is not protecting the retail investors. They are not, okay? They're protecting the funds because they know that if AMC and GameStop super squeeze, that it's going to have a big impact globally on the markets. It's going to have a shock and awe effect. It's going to create a ton of instability, and that's not what they want. It doesn't matter with these guys, the Kramer brothers. They've been doing this for so long, 20 plus years. It was in the early 2000s, the 2010s, and now we're in the 2020s, and we're seeing the same exact thing. They're suing them. These toxic lenders. And who is it? CEO Kurt Kramer. We talked about this in last video. If we go into here, we see in 2015 to 2021, over 600 transactions. They converted and sold over 5.2 billion shares of stock. Take a look at this. We see a true David and Goliath story. We talk about VNUE. Let's hear what the CEO has to say. When we took these notes, we did so reluctantly because we had no other funding source at the time. Vulnerable, right? And it was either that or unable to execute our business plan. Is it making sense now? The intent was always to pay them off rather than having to convert the shares, but it was only recently through our attorneys that we learned we were alleged to be unregistered dealers taking advantage of dozens of small companies like ours and likely breaking the law in the process. No one likes getting involved in litigation, but VNUE will no longer tolerate these predatory lenders profiting off our shareholders and the hard work of our staff. So now people are getting educated about it. Now the CEOs in these companies are realizing, oh my God, we're being manipulated, we're being taken advantage of. They're trying to bankrupt our company. That's what's happening. Okay, and we discussed it plenty of times in our previous video. We see here, HPIL Holdings sues Power Up Lending Group. Okay, look at the charges that they're talking about. Okay, Kurt Kramer and Seth Kramer for multiple alleged violations of federal securities and RICO laws. You can go and check this out here. Okay, Geneva Roth Holdings and Hope Capital. So there is a lot going on behind the scenes, folks. This is not just, people that are going to get away with it. The FBI is involved, and this is a big deal. And now a lot of you might be saying, well, isn't this a problem? Isn't this a bad thing? No, GTII is a penny stock. It's traded in the OTC markets, right? If we take a look here, right, it's 60 cents. There's no volume in it, right? It's not on a regulated market. There's no options, right? No options here. That is what we want from a play. If there's allegedly 100 million naked shorts, this thing is going to fly. And why do I like to compare it to something like AMTD? I know that triggers people. I know it gets them crazy. Oh my God, it's not going to do that. Okay, Well, just hear me out here. We're seeing the same concept as to a penny stock where there's not a lot of volume. GTI traded 30,000 on Friday, barely can get an order filled for 500. No one's playing in this game. It's not the Citadels, it's not the BlackRocks, it's not those guys, it's not the Cabals. They're not playing in here. They don't have hundreds of billions of dollars of worth. Okay, barely your retail investors are playing in this. So what's going to happen is see what happened when it went from a dollar all the way to 14, it jumped 1,300% in 19 days. This was the true play. It wasn't HKD, it was AMTD. This was the most affordable. Anyone could have bought this for $1, $2, $3, and then it just jumped. So why? Again, look at the volume. It's the same exact concept. There was no volume until it jumped. And that's the thing. You want to get into a play when no one's talking about it. 13,000, 20,000, 20,000, 30,000, nothing. And then all of a sudden, it just goes absolutely parabolic, 20 million, 200 million, and then the song and dance is over. So that is why I compare GTII to a play like AMTD. The rumor is 100 million naked shorts. That is going to be huge. And the problem is when you're a criminal and you're dealing with, federal investigation, no one is going to want to touch you the second you get convicted. The second you get burned for a play, it's like there's a stench on you. I mean, the prime broker, they're not going to want to do business with them. And especially if they tap out, and they, get sent to jail, well, that's going to be an even bigger problem if they're not able to keep this stock down. It's going to fly, and obviously they're not going to bear the responsibility because there's no way they're going to be able to pay it. So there is certainly a lot that goes into this play. I want to show you one more clip.
Goldman Sachs, we were in this lawsuit and they were forced to, after 8 years of fighting, to turn up how big is this obscure thing called securities lending. Securities lending, there's a desk within all the big banks called securities lending. You'll understand in a few minutes what it does. How big was it? I knew it was at least 5%. I thought it might be 15%. 15% at Goldman Sachs would be quite a large number. Heard rumors it might be as big as a quarter of Goldman Sachs came from this thing called securities lending people didn't know much about 10 years ago. Well, the answer turns out to be 75%. 75% of Goldman Sachs' revenue comes from an activity that they have kept that has been obscured from the public. It's called securities lending. And this is why it cost me $30 million to get that piece of paper. 75% of Goldman Sachs prime brokerage. There's the hedge fund and there's the prime broker. 75% Goldman Sachs is a securities lending desk with the name of a bank on the door. And this is a big secret. It has been a big secret. And it turns out that of that 75%, 76% comes from lending a particular class of stock called a hard-to-borrow stock. So it turns out that this is Goldman Sachs' business. And I think the same is true for the other 5 big prime brokers on Wall Street. No reason to think this is any different. But that's 3/4 of their revenue. And by the way, since the securities lending desk tends to be a couple of small number of guys named Joe and Tony and Louie from Staten Island, the expenses are very, very tiny. So while it's 75% of the revenue, my guess is it's about 100 to 150% of all the profit of prime brokerage on Wall Street comes from this area of people. That's this really obscure little corner of Wall Street. Amazingly few controls, no controls to keep this going on in the back offices of Wall Street in the last decade. And so that is why in 2008, Alan Greenspan was naming settlement as one of the parts of the crisis, because all of this craziness that had been going on, one of the effects is a bunch of fake stock, a bunch of stock enters the market that's not really stock, that isn't backed up by anything.
So as you can see, this video is extremely insightful. It shows that even 20 years ago, they were still talking about the same problems, which is stock settlement. All right. what GTII has done really well is exposed the stock settlement, or actually forcing a share count. Now, FINRA, in the latest update, this was August 8th, so 20 days ago, the company reported that the DTC is unable to process the digital dividend distribution to shareholders. You see all these companies trying to do the special dividend. They play by the streets rules. And the second you give them ID numbers, they're going to manipulate it, they're going to copy it. That's how it works. And we're seeing it clearly with GME and AMC that it's not going through. The brokers are not registering them correctly. And still, they probably haven't even been delivered. Okay. They're just going in the account as an IOU. So, there is a lot of issues behind the scenes. GTII exposed that by actually offering something that a short or a naked short could not supply, something they couldn't deliver, and that exposed that there was clearly a discrepancy, a very large discrepancy, in my opinion, between the actual number and then what is circulating there. So that is what we believe from the DTCC and why they are blocking it. It would be no other reason. The company said, hey, we want you to be hands off. We're going to conduct it. We're going to pay for everything. Don't worry about it. We'll distribute everything. We'll get the count. And for a company to be that aggressive and have a CEO holding stock and buying stock at 99 cents or at $1, which is, almost double market value currently, it's a really strong sign when you see insiders buying and insiders putting their money back into the company, especially a penny stock like this. So they're fighting back. They're updating the investors. They're going after the criminals. That they're being, proactive here, and they're willing to learn. That's what I see from the company. That's my opinion. Again, nothing in this video has been financial advice. The company's doing everything right. The system's clearly broken. Find a way to force settlement, they change the rules on you. So this is what we're up against. It is a structure problem. It is all global, is market wide. It is not just pertained to one specific stock. It is the entire equity market, and there needs to be a change. This has to be reported on. We need to see people that have the power and that have a voice to expose this. I mean, this is a cakewalk article. I mean, come on, guys. Uh, the information's right there. It's a overwhelming paper trail. I mean, the facts are there. The proof is in the pudding. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one.